Okay, this video is for anyone who's ever wondered about hard stepping or soft stepping a golf club. We're going to talk about what it is, why you do it, and see, well, does it work? Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm here in the Elite Fit Golf studio, and today we're going to be talking about stepping a golf club, or more specifically, stepping a golf shaft. So first off, well, what is hard stepping or soft stepping? Very simply, when we are talking about taper tip shafts and heads, that being the shaft has sort of this kind of shape to it at the very tip, it tapers down. You need that because some hosels of irons have that same design, so they're meant to go together versus a parallel tip shaft that just runs perfectly straight up and down. So when you have these taper tip shafts, what that requires is if you break your 7-iron shaft and you go to get a new 7-iron shaft put in, when you go to order that shaft or you go to buy that shaft, you go and you actually find a specific shaft that is made for a 7-iron head. Likewise, if you have a 5-iron that needs replacing, well, you find the specific 5-iron shaft. Each of the shafts have been made and bend in such a way to match up with a certain head to give you the right stiffness, because the different heads weigh different amounts. As the head gets to the shorter end of your bag, the heads get heavier. So in order to support that, the shafts have to get stiffer. Okay, this makes sense, right? So if you've got a 7-iron that needs a replacement shaft, you would typically go with a 7-iron shaft. Now, when we're talking about soft stepping or hard stepping, all that means is instead of getting the 7-iron shaft and putting it into that 7-iron head, you're going to get, say, the 8-iron shaft and put it into the 7-iron head. Now, if we do that, that is hard stepping. We've now put an 8-iron shaft, a little bit stiffer shaft, into the 7-iron head. Now, it's not going to be a different length because you still have to cut it from the butt end to get the final length. So it's not like you're putting, a shorter 7-iron together with that 8-iron shaft. You would still make it the same length, but it's going to be a little bit stiffer because that shaft is usually designed to go with a heavier 8-iron shaft. Likewise, if we're talking about soft stepping, we're just going the opposite direction. So instead of putting the 7-iron shaft in the 7-iron head, we would put the 6-iron shaft in the 7-iron head. And again, we get the opposite result. The 6-iron shaft is designed for a little lighter head weight, so it's going to be a little bit more flexible versus the 7-iron shaft. Now let me show you just a couple things just to keep in mind when we're doing hard stepping or soft stepping. So for this video, I wanted to make sure that we sort of exaggerated everything to see if we could really get some results that you could actually see, actually notice. So I've got Dynamic Gold 105 S300 right here. This is the 7-iron shaft. I've also got this Dynamic Gold 105 S300 shaft, but this is actually the 9-iron shaft. And I've got this Dynamic Gold 105 S300, but this is the 5-iron shaft. So each of these is considered double stepped, right? We're not just going 1 iron over, we're going 2. So should be even stiffer or even more flexible in each of these cases. First thing you may not realize if you do this is there will be a slight weight difference if you hard step or soft step a golf shaft. And what you'll see here is essentially just a 1 gram difference from one to the next. The heaviest of the bunch being the hard stepped shaft. So there is a very small weight difference, but again, it is very small. Now the next thing I also did was I went ahead and just took frequency measurements for each of these shafts. Again, just to show you what's happening here. The double soft step shaft, the 5-iron shaft, you can see is a little bit softer. The number on the frequency meter is lower than it is on the 7-iron shaft. And likewise, when we went into the 9-iron shaft, it is even stiffer. So the stiffest of the bunch, as you can see very clearly, is this 9-iron shaft. So the next question is, well, why do people do it? I think for most people, the idea is you're trying to adjust ball flight a little bit. You're trying to adjust the height, the launch that you're getting out of the ball, and you're trying to adjust maybe the backspin of it. So if you're trying to, kind of lower the ball flight, you would expect in general that the stiffer hard step shaft is going to bring that ball flight down versus the soft step shaft is maybe going to launch it a little higher. At least that's the idea. Now we're going to figure out, does any of this make any difference? Does it matter if you are hard stepping or soft stepping your iron shafts? So I've got my friend Michael here, who's a solid golfer, who's going to help us with a little experiment. We're going to be hitting these 3 different shafts: the standard 7-iron shaft in the 7-iron head, the 5-iron shaft or soft stepped twice shaft, and the 9-iron shaft, the hard stepped twice shaft. We're going to get all the data on GC Quad, see what we get for launch, for spin, for ball speed, and we're also going to get some feedback from Michael just as far as what kind of feel he gets from each of these shafts. Can he tell any difference, or do they all feel the same? So we're going to find out, see what happens. Okay, we started out with Michael just hitting standard stock 7-iron shaft, 7-iron head. Now we're going to switch it out, put something different in there. I'm not going to tell him which one it is right now. I'll tell him partway through, but we're just going to switch it out, see what happens at least for the first couple before he knows. That was a good one right out of the gate.
Was healed a bit.
Okay. What do you think as far as feel goes? Do you notice?
I think it definitely felt a bit firmer as soon as I
Feels a
started
little-
swinging it.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I play generally a bit stiffer shaft, I think, than this, so I think
Right.
it feels a little more like what I usually play.
Okay.
But yeah, definitely noticeable.
Okay.
When I first picked, even when I just first was like waggling it, it was a little different.
You feel just the flex.
Yeah.
The flex in the shaft. So, say 4 out of 5. How does this one feel?
Like a little wild.
A little while. I mean, I would expect this to be pretty noticeable, obviously, because
Yeah.
we're moving 4 shafts between a 9 and a 5. So,
It doesn't feel like I have a whole lot of control right now.
okay.
It's different from what I usually use. A lot different. Feels a lot
Okay.
different.
Yeah, I mean, your club speed 96. I mean, what your driver speed is what, probably?
115, 117.
Yeah, so this shaft is definitely going to be a little soft for you. Again, double soft step, but
Yeah, and that was noticeable when I first picked it up, when I started waggling it.
yeah. And then you hit one right on the line, so. I mean, better golfer, obviously, you're able to sort of adjust
Yeah.
to it to a certain extent.
Hit a
and
couple
sort of-
shots and figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Get a little feel for how it kicks, and then pretty good. So overall, definitely you would say that the stiffest one was the one that you probably hit the most consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the most consistent. Although the most notable aspect, I guess, was that the ball speed jumped with the hard stepped, but it didn't really increase distance, which is interesting.
Right, just one yard further, but not. But you had basically 2 full miles an hour faster with your ball speed in that hard step. Ball speed 2 miles an hour faster with the hard stepped, the soft stepped, and the standard, both basically the same. The launch angle, all of them in the same ballpark, so close I would say, not really even a factor. We're talking 16, 16.2, 16.3 for the three of them, and that was going in order of standard, hard, soft, so there's not even a correlation there between the flex and the launch. The spin, again, in the standard and the soft step was in the 5,700 range, and then the hard step went up to 6,000. I think a lot of that is probably just he was hitting it harder, and we got a little more spin out of it that way. Descent angle, again, also showing basically because that higher spin, so we got a little bit sharper descent angle. And then finally, like Michael said, overall distance, carry distance, everything was again within 1 yard, 186 on the standard, 187 on the hard step, and 185 on the soft step. So again, pretty much the same on all three. All right, so the final takeaway from this, I would say, is definitely that, even with double stepping both these shafts, the results really showed very, very small variations. So, does stepping influence ball flight? Well, maybe in some regards, and to a very, very small amount, especially if we're talking only single stepping. But I think really it's probably better suited more just as a feel type of adjustment if you want something that feels, quote unquote, a little softer or a little harder, because the actual ball flight data, at least that we got here, doesn't show a big difference at all. I think you're probably far better off if you want to make adjustments to your launch, to your spin, to actually start bending lofts and adjusting that way. That's going to be a far more efficient way to make those adjustments in the golf ball's flight. All right, there you go. Hopefully this gives you a little better idea of both, one, what is hard stepping or soft stepping, why you do it, and then what might you actually see from doing it. I definitely want to thank Michael for being here today, helping us out, hitting some balls, giving us some really good data that we could dissect and get a better idea of what is actually happening when we're switching out these shafts. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down below, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be alerted when I post new videos. And I will see you on the next video. Take care.